Wheelless helical ring robots are now capable of omnidirectional locomotion thanks to AI. Vibe coding is officially out of hand, partially Gemini 2.5, partially lazy coding. Look, you just call OpenAI, fix this error over and over again until you get something that works. Here's one chart with all the humanoid robots. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Definitely shows how China's got a lead right now. Turns out new breakthroughs in entropy, noise, and encryption mean the future of private AIs is going to be very different. A new architecture for neural networks means it knows how to hesitate at just the right moments to be more accurate. There's a video game called inZOI, which really is the Sims taken to the next level. And if our universe is a simulation, it probably started a video game similar to this in whatever universe is outside of our universe. Forest Knight showed some examples of just how amazing of a coder Gemini 2.5 is. This Kitten Cannon clone game is a 3-shot build. Seriously, just 3 prompts. So robots like this in the future can be trained by AI in a very unique way. They're not using camera vision and cameras. They're detecting pressure with their helical rings and then learning how to shift their weight based on how much friction they detect. This enables it to crawl across different surfaces, sand, pipes, even retreat when it bumps into something, kind of like a reptile. And it's a really weird twist on robotics, pun intended. All right, so check this out. Vibe coding taken to the extreme. Probably a pre-planned script. It's probably not like real code, but who knows? In this world, it might be.
There's code and everything looks fine, but then there's this try catch here, right? So the try does something, but then the catch just asks OpenAI to fix the error and then console logs the fix. Like, how is this gonna work, man? The AI is just gonna return some random stuff. So I was like, fix this. There's better ways to do this. And then this is what they come up with. So they didn't even change anything. They similarly just do an OpenAI call, but now it returns only the code. And then they just eval the fix. What?
Maybe this is genius and I'm just the idiot, because this will just retry fixes until something works. So honestly, maybe they're cooking with this, but.
So there you go. Can you imagine code in the future that like just asks OpenAI, like, make this happen, and then just check it to make sure it works. And if not, then go fix it. And it just sends the error back to OpenAI, and like every program in the world is just like constantly being rebuilt and vibe coded into existence. All right, rise of humanoid robots. Here they are in just a couple big charts. It's pretty fascinating to see them all put together. Boston Dynamics, Apptronic, we saw earlier in the video, the figure robots. Of course, agility we've come across a lot, Sanctuary a lot, X1, AGI bot, Xping, Unitree, Borg I haven't heard of, Galbot I haven't heard of, Neurorobotics I haven't heard of, but the Clone Robotics, Tesla's Optimus, Kepler, and then none of these I've heard of before, but a lot of them are in the Chinese realm too. So I don't know, like just surprising how many are coming. And if every one of these companies can get to scale with, who knows, 5,000 to hundreds of thousands built every year, think of how quickly the world's population is going to just grow in terms of like humans and humanoid robots. There's no way 2030 looks anything like today. And here the comments keep pointing out 15 of the 30 are projects from China. Give me one robot that will help me take care of my baby. Please don't add weapons. All right, there's a new study that was trying to figure out ways that we could secure models like ChatGPT. And they made a connection between the concept of entropy, which is a measure of disorder, and mathematically determined how it plays a huge role in how well an AI model works when you remove the nonlinear parts, which are essentially the parts that are hard to keep private. So they came up with a kind of interesting way to design a different AI system that tweaks how the model handles information early on throughout the layers, like when it's learning how it handles things that are uniformly linear, which are easy to pick out, and instead of all the crazy exponentials, which is where the craziness comes from, which also is like the security. And they created a system that can still learn and make sense while keeping data much more private. Super fresh take on balancing privacy, speed, and accuracy in AI. They even open source the tool so others can build on it, so we'll see what that leads to. So now let's talk about a clever way to make neural networks less overconfident and more cautious. especially in the kind of systems that really matter, like medicine or safety, maybe military. So instead of just training AI models with a hard yes or no answers, they're using this new soft labeling system that shows how confident experts were in their decisions when they trained it. So this seems really smart to me, and I'm surprised we haven't really just like nailed this down before, but whenever you're giving reinforcement feedback, it might be helpful to be like, look, I really am confident about this, or like, I think that's right, but I'm no expert. That's a soft label, and that helps the system learn how deeply to integrate that knowledge. Kind of a no-brainer, but I guess I hadn't thought about it before, and probably a lot of other people just built systems without thinking about it either. But this does help AI learn when uncertainty is like warranted. It flags situations that might need humans to double check. And it's all about teaching these models to hesitate when it should, leading to smarter, safer decisions in high-stakes environment. For sure, we want a system, especially like a military system, to hesitate unless it's just so confident, you know? Actually, even then, if you're that confident, ask somebody to then make the decision. I'm not comfortable with military stuff doing anything dangerous. All right, let's talk about inZOI. I never heard of this game until this week, but it seems like it's The Sims, but taken to the next level. And why The Sims isn't the first to do it, I don't know. But this real-life simulator is just so detailed. I kind of wonder if it's going to be a progression over the next 5, 10, 15 years where it gets more and more detailed, more and more AI gets put into it, more and more just like upscaling and world building and real-time stuff goes into it until like, what if they wake up? Like, what if these little agents, all these characters, all these like NPCs keep getting upgraded until in the future we have supercomputers built by ASI that we can barely imagine right now. We are like the gods that created a whole world. So I don't know. But anyways, right now it's just a video game, but you should check it out. It's a real life simulator that's highly detailed. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube you can watch, but this playthrough is the one I watched. It was from Tamar TN2. So look at how much detail he put into his own avatar. It looks quite a bit like him. And then he was able to make a fictional wife that he's now married to in the game and living with. So he gets to make her as beautiful as he wants, and then he goes through and like picks all her other social characteristics. Does she like to explore? Is she a visionary? Is she a charmer? There's just so much detail they have put into this game, it seems like. I mean, like the world building and the graphics look just pretty hyper realistic. I don't know, man, you know this is going to get tempting. The human brain craves social, and if we bridge the uncanny valley and AI NPCs are everywhere, it's going to be pretty engaging, dangerously engaging, more so than social media, I think. All right, on top of that, I want to show you another video. This came from Forrest Knight. He did a bunch of coding examples with Gemini 2.5 Pro. And look, a game like this was done with 3 shots. This is a Java-based ultimate tic-tac-toe game, a 9 square, and he did it in 1 shot. It still was showing some problems with UI work, but when this model is integrated into better platforms for development like Cursor and Replit, we're starting to get to the point where it's doing some amazing code, and you can run these entire code bases like as serious businesses or products. I mean, from what I understand, I wouldn't say that we're at the point where you really don't need any technical skills and you can just like totally put all this together, but with enough effort, somebody who cares can do a very lot. And then maybe some experts at certain points could be involved. But if your business is making money, somebody with expertise can certainly use a tool like this to get an incredible amount of work done. And it's just facts, man. Gemini 2.5 is just really smart. It has a long context window. It's really good at coding. And here's the examples to prove it. AI in terms of forensics had a big week because AI is now saving the Mona Lisa. I mean, I feel like we need a new CSI just called like CSI AI, and that would make a great episode. Okay, so AI, digital forensics, they have come together. Project is called CarVDL, and it uses deep learning to recover deleted or fragmented data that traditional methods can't handle. By the way, remember in the last episode how it was like they were using it to unroll that scroll that was like so delicate it would have fallen apart if a human tried to do it? Like, anyhow, different topic, but in this case, back to the forensics, the digital forensics. Instead of relying on fixed file signatures, this new system called CarVDL uses tech like Swin Transformer V2 and ResNet to piece together even the most broken digital file. So think about recovering a destroyed photo from just like a tiny bit of the memory. Like we're talking big chunks of data missing. It's not just like, okay, like let's, for example, imagine an image, right, with like 50% of the pixels missing, maybe even 75% of the pixels missing, and it can reconstruct the whole thing. And then that could be any of the files that you've ever had on your computer that you've tried to wipe. Now, the article talks about the Mona Lisa because one of the fun examples in their promo video shows it helping solve a fictional like Mona Lisa theft. This tech legit could be huge for recovering, who knows, old documents. Wonder about that, maybe that like lost Bitcoin stuff. Maybe that's even in there. God, maybe that could help like somebody recover some of those like lost keys. I don't know. But definitely people who like think their digital footprint is deleted and they put their hard drives up on eBay or something. This thing, AI is going to be putting all of that stuff back together if someone wants.
Data, the file itself gets fragmented into many pieces. Those pieces are then saved on the drive, scattered all around. Only the file system knows how fragments need to be connected to build up the file. By deleting a file, this information gets erased, and both its file type classification, the kind of data it once was, and the correct order in which to connect the fragments is lost. So, when the police try to access the data, they are presented with countless blank pieces of an unknown number of jigsaw puzzles. Fitting all the information together manually would be impossible, but not for DFKI's reconstruction AI. In its first step, the AI is tasked with classifying all the blank fragments of data again. The highest class probability determines the file type. Once the process is finished, the police can then filter for their sought-after type of data, in this case, image. After classification is finished, one is left with all the image fragments, which basically means facing a mountain of pieces from countless puzzles thoroughly mixed. The AI is then able to match all the respective pieces of each specific puzzle and solve them as the final step, meaning putting all the matching image fragments back together, and voila! The image of Mona Lisa has been successfully reconstructed.
I mean, you want to just take a second with me to realize that's crazy. There will be no digital footprint. Everything you've ever searched, I think everything you've ever deleted is going to be fair game for reconstruction. AI is just so good at finding needles in haystacks. And we're talking about needles in ocean-sized haystacks and then reorganizing all the hay into the freaking Mona Lisa. It's just amazing. And we're at the very beginning of how good AI is going to be at all of this stuff. All right, now let's talk about new Anthropic research. My vote for paper of the year, honestly, last year I would say it was the Golden Gate neuron, which also came out of Anthropic. I'm fascinated with the work they do, especially because I want to kind of know how stuff's stored in my brain and how it's all connected. And I feel like this gives me some of the best insights I've ever had to how the human brain might work too. And that's me. Like, I'm curious about myself. But anyways, this interpretability paper came out tracing the thoughts of a large language model. Okay, so imagine like a human brain, you've got this huge neural network that we call Claude. It's been trained on the whole internet and tons of synthetic data and all that. All these word tokens are positioned somewhere relative to each other, and those positions matter. As a whole, it can make predictions for each token that makes sentences that seem incredibly human to us. Now they have built essentially a microscope for looking at some of the math that's happening inside the dimensionality, the relative spacing between the words, and dampening down some, enhancing some, and then seeing how it changes the output, hence learning why the structure matters. And what they're finding, and they used a poem example, is that before it even starts writing its first word, in essence, it's got a position in there where it makes a relative connection to what it's going to do. So you can say that it's planning. It seems very human to me. It is not just next token because the place where it's getting the next token is meaningful to the future. It's predicting, it's thinking. For example, if you ask it to finish this poem, he saw a carrot and had to grab it. There's an inference, there's a position inside of this latent space where the word rabbit makes the most sense. Rabbit is relatively close to the word carrot. There's an association between rabbits eating carrots. There's also an association between the rhyming of grabbit and rabbit. In this huge multidimensional space, which is like uncomprehendable, something you can't think to visualize, but it just blows up exponentially, like the way that a deck of cards can be arranged in like literally trillions of configurations, even though it doesn't feel like it. There's not that many cards, like decks of cards. There's something exponential about that. And in all of those possibilities, there is positions that represent the future, that are planning. This is waking up or something to me. I mean, this is intelligence that we're discovering. And it's a really big can of worms. Anyways, but this is great research because this tool is going to give us a ton of ability to like look at these things. And I hope like hundreds or thousands and thousands of researchers start using tools like this to really map out and understand what these systems are thinking before they take action, what they're probably going to do, so that we have some explainability before, things go wrong. We can see systems that are misaligned, hopefully. So they say that it thinks in a kind of universal language that's bigger than any particular language across multiple tongues. But yeah, I just think you can think of like 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimensions as sort of like line, square, cube, etc. And when it's that simple, you can almost think of the dimensions as, say, like synonyms, right? Like, so the word rabbit and grabbit could be like on one dimension, which is like things that rhyme. And then another dimension could be like things that are like objects that are associated with animals or something. And that could be a second dimension. But because this blows up exponentially, there's just so many dimensions that like everything you can think of in our reality that make this whole thing seem so unique and complex can have a dimension. So, and the other big thing about this paper that's really kind of like changing my paradigm is that they don't really think of it as a position the way I described it. They describe something like that word, grab it, that it decided to kind of like pre-predict before it even started writing as a circuit. Now they call it a circuit because instead of just thinking about it as a position, it's a position that's connected to several other things. There's a chain kind of in there that, they're all in positions, but there's a chain that is made up from where everything is. And together that circuit is the full explanatory piece. So it says you can think of it like this. Inside of an AI, there's tons of these tiny little features or patterns or dimensions, like I was talking about, like rhyming or objects. And those are all things that it's learned from its training data. But when a question or a task is asked of it, the features start to interact with each other in a sequence, kind of like how dominoes fall in a specific order. That chain reaction is the way that different concepts are activated and influence each other. That's what the researchers calling a circuit. So probably we can start mapping dangerous circuits, misaligned circuits, entrepreneurial circuits in the future. And then maybe these models can be more explanatory and we can understand them better. But basically what they mean by a circuit is an internal pathway that the model follows to arrive at a certain output. And by studying these, this is how we're going to learn a whole lot more about the nature of intelligence as a whole. All right. Anyways, and let's move on. Archaeology, artificial intelligence, why AI admits that ancient sites probably weren't built by humans. This was written by Mark Flink. Okay, so he's thinking about the history of the world, right? Like the Great Pyramids and other things that are in the past. And as humans, we have built up all of our knowledge with sort of the assumption that humans put a lot of stuff together. And then we've basically written history like the story of humans, right? We've systematically connected all the way to the present day anomalies, historical counts, unexplained engineering feats as humans that had done something, right? And we're looking for what it is that the humans did. But he started to challenge the AI system about those assumptions, right? He was saying that like maybe we don't have to assume that all ancient accomplishments must be human made, right? So maybe he's like trying to open the door, like, do you think aliens could have done it? You think maybe magic, or I don't like, it could be a bunch of non-human stuff. And then he gets AI to kind of think about its own thinking and recognize that it does have a bias towards humans writing history. It has a human-only framework because that's how it works, and it actually could be something that is blocking logical interpretations of the evidence. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm trying to be like, look, there's like aliens are out there, they made the pyramids or anything. But it is interesting when you start taking something that was kind of built by humans and taking out the human aspect of it and seeing if it does come to some conclusions that are just so far outside of the box from the paradigm. It can, it can really approach certain subjects with extreme knowledge and no bias, or like some kind of opposite bias, to see if it can actually come to conclusions in a different way with different thinking. Anyways, and try to reevaluate the past with fresh eyes. And it just seemed like something worth sharing. Especially like in history, everything's like this military thing took over this military thing, and then they adopted all of this culture. But the truth is, who knows? Like, there's probably so much like culture change that was done just by random people who were like appreciated in the environment, or people who had good ideas, or they spoke in town squares, and there was no like conquering or military history of it. And that actually led to all sorts of changes, or maybe those are causal to a lot of military things instead of the way we like kind of use types of history that are military based. Not everything is a conflict or a conquering, and that's just the way history is sort of written, but that's not the real history. All right, let's talk about how there will be no manly transhumans, according to Benjamin Kane. Okay, so he's arguing that some of the traditional, quote, manly virtues like toughness, stoicism, physical strength are all becoming increasingly irrelevant in the new high-tech, post-industrial world where digital life and emotionally sensitive people dominate. So his kind of conclusion is that as we move towards a world of transhumanism and the future is shaped by AI and cybernetics, traits that are tied to old school masculinity may seem kind of outdated. So maybe like a more woke, more fluid, feminine, softer, emotionally intelligent future is just how this story is going to play out. He argues that while manliness once thrived in an era of exploration, war, and hands-on problem solving, our growing dependence on technology shifts the value system towards traits that are more associated with femininity, empathy, cooperation, and adaptability. And he even suggests that cultural panic over the declining masculinity, like the stuff that we're kind of seeing with like UFC hype and right-wing movements, might actually be backlash against this inevitable shift as people sort of feel that being taken away from them due to technology. So I don't know. I mean, it's food for thought. I'm not going to like completely endorse that thinking, but there are some aspects of it that kind of make sense to me. For better or worse. Okay, now also just something that I found really curious was this one guy, so Thomas Smith covers it, but an incredible predictive power of OpenAI's new deep research. And it was this guy who tried to make a prediction about a new drink and used deep research to do it, and it actually worked. So just so you understand the power of deep research, because I had never thought to use it in this way, right? But the author has this idea for a fun experiment to use OpenAI's deep research tool. And he used it to try to predict a new drink that was going to be coming out of this coffee shop in his area. And the results were eerily accurate. It really kind of felt like deep research figured out something that a person really couldn't. So instead of making guesses as to what this coffee shop has new drinks, right? Like every month or whatever, they release like a new drink and they name it and they put it together and people don't know what it is until it comes out. So instead of just making guesses, the AI took its time and it started reviewing all of the social media posts, the past trends, and even a bunch of like image details from their like teasers. And it ends up delivering some predictions with confidence ratings. And it nailed pretty much every aspect of the final product before they made the official release. To me, that's also showing how soon we'll look through medical research of somebody and deep research will find stuff that just doctors never would. Whatever, you imagine like the history of a car, the history of a house, the product market fit. So look at this, like the coffee shop's upcoming March 25 drink launch. Look, based on the official teaser, past specialty beverages, and community buzz, we've put together clues about what this mysterious new drink might be. Below is a breakdown. Look, the model felt that a nutty drink was a possibility. Deep Research looked at all the images and the social posts. Because it's a vision model, it could analyze the ingredients visible in the image to make a prediction. From this, it concluded that the drink would include a cold brew coffee, plant-based milk, and some kind of caramel element. Then it analyzed other posts about new drinks on social media to see what the general consensus was. Model said it was 70 to 80% confident in its conclusion. It called out cardamom and cinnamon as likely flavors, but noted that also nutty flavors like specialized hazelnut were possibilities too. And look, the model eventually predicted that the drink would be called the Caramel Nirvana. And the drink actually came out and it was called the Nutty Caramel Nirvana. The model predicted that it would be iced, creamy, and sweet, all of which were true. The model predicted hazelnut, and it turns out that it's a hazelnut flavoring. So there you go, man. You don't just have to see robots doing backflips and robotic dogs riding skateboards, donut-shaped robots predicting drinks before they come out. Deep Research, it's already here. Changing the game. This is my Patreon account. I have 92 members. If you join, I will have 93. I did just get to $200 a month. Next goal, I want to say 300, but that just seems like so far away. So next goal will be 250. It'd be super helpful if you hit that join button there on YouTube. You can do the same thing, like contributing each month really helps. But even if not, just supporting the channel through watching views, hitting like, sharing it, all that stuff matters. You can see my last video, AI Wasn't Supposed to Wake Up, filmed in that hotel room with that like terrible background. Got to 12,000 views, which is awesome. I mean, look, I made $100 on that video. I got 113 new subscribers. That is so cool. Views were up 67%. Click-through rate was really high, almost 10%. There was a big difference in thumbnails. You guys really liked when I used that robot image, which I then, brought into this video. I can't use that background twice though, which sucks. I'll have to do probably like an Anthropic thumbnail for this one, but definitely a big jump there. I don't know why, but look, 5.2% of females showed up. That is a record. It is not uncommon to have 0 and maybe 1 or 2 if I'm really lucky. So it was a good range. It really showed it to a lot of new people, this video. So thank you. So now I'll leave you with an AI generated song about an AI generated Blender model creation. And yeah, let it speak for itself. See you guys in the next video.
Stop making circles the old boring way. We've got a new trick to save your day. Start with a plane, merge it at the core. One vertex left, don't need no more. Move it, extrude it, take it around.